Hello and welcome. You're tuned into Eye on Africa. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Buahi. These are the top stories. Dozens die in the east of Uganda, where landslides triggered by torrential rains have wreaked havoc on villages and infrastructure. The government warned the death toll could yet rise. The International Organisation of La Francophonie named Rwanda's top diplomat Louise Mushikiwabo as its new chief. Our correspondent Mark Pellman brings us the very latest from that summit. Also coming up, Ivorians prepare to vote in local and regional elections on Saturday, but with a split in the country's once stable coalition, polls are being seen as a litmus test for 2020 presidential elections. Our correspondents on the ground report. We begin in Uganda, where authorities say dozens of people have died after mudslides triggered by torrential rains hit a mountainous area in the country's east. Now, a river running through the densely populated Mount Elgon area burst, sending deadly boulders and large chunks of mud rolling downhill. The government has warned the death toll could yet rise. France 24's Laurent Burstica has this report.
A busy market day suddenly turned to horror as a torrent of rocks and mud swept through the village of Bukalasi on Thursday, catching residents by surprise.
We took shelter from the rain under a veranda. Then my friend tried to go get his motorcycle and saw a house being carried away by the mudslide. That's when we left. But those who stayed were all swept away by the water. School children, market vendors, everyone.
Rescue teams began searching for survivors on Friday, and volunteers desperately tried to dig through the mud with blunt pieces of wood. Meanwhile, the first bodies were being pulled out of the rubble. At least 40 people have been confirmed dead, a toll that's likely to increase according to officials, who say many had come from neighboring villages to shop at the local market.
Being a market day in Naposhi, we can't establish the number of people who are dead. There are those who are from Manafa, we are just picking them from the waters. There are those who are from Sorongo, the traders who are there in the same center.
The mudslide was triggered by heavy rain, which caused the nearby Sume River to overflow. At least 2 other villages were affected, according to the Red Cross. There is no early warning system in this part of Uganda, a mountainous region that's extremely prone to flooding. In 2010, a landslide killed over 100 people in the Bududa district. The government says efforts to move vulnerable populations away from at-risk areas have faced steep resistance from local residents.
Next, the International Organisation of La Francophonie has named Rwanda's Foreign Minister Louise Mushikiwabo as its head. In a suspense-free vote, Mushikiwabo was elected as the official replacement for Canada's Michaëlle Jean. Her appointment is seen by some as a sign of improving relations between Paris and Kigali. Critics, though, have questioned Rwanda's human rights record. With more, France 24's Mark Pellman is in Yerevan for the 17th Francophonie Summit.
As was expected, Rwanda's Foreign Minister Louise Mushikiwabo was designated here today by her peers as the new Secretary General of the Organization of French-speaking countries. There was not much suspense. However, the outgoing Secretary General, Michaëlle Jean of Canada, went out swinging. She said that she was the victim, quote-unquote, of a shady deal between several countries. She was clearly alluding to France and Rwanda. We interviewed the President of France and the President of Rwanda today, and we asked them whether this election would maybe force Rwanda to improve its human rights records. Take a listen.
The face of Rwanda of today is the face of a transformation, of a change. I alluded to it. On issues like the gender equality, Rwanda moved forward and is much more forward than others. It is right now making a real political transition. I do hope so. I think that this appointment is compelling.
Why do you think it is only one thing that people should look at? Maybe there is a record of Rwanda in its own governance system, and the job Mushikiwabo had done for over 8 years as a foreign minister. I am the chair of the African Union, and she has been, therefore, the chair of the Council of Ministers of Africa So I surely think this must be coming out of some credit.
Well, obviously, the proof will be in the pudding, as the saying goes. We'll have to see if Rwanda delivers on its promises to improve its human rights record. And we'll also have to see if this organization will be rejuvenated. This was the call of Emmanuel Macron to really make the Francophonie, as the organization is known in France, an active member of the international community.
The World Health Organization has warned that some 200 cases of Ebola have been confirmed in DR Congo since an outbreak first detected in August. Humanitarian workers are meanwhile struggling to reassure people in the east of the country, where 125 people have died of the deadly virus. In recent weeks, the UN has voiced increasing concern over the growing number of cases, particularly in the town of Beni, close to the Ugandan border. Now, on Saturday, voters across Ivory Coast will cast their ballots in local and regional elections. The polls come amid a split in the coalition between President Alassane Ouattara's party and that of the former leader, Henri Bédié. Well, that very coalition has allowed peaceful elections since a post-electoral crisis in 2010 when 3,000 people died. Saturday's vote is seen as a litmus test for presidential elections in 2020. Our correspondents Frank Hersey and Tyus Brooke sent us this report.
The last day of campaigning before Saturday's vote. The posts of all 197 mayors and 31 regional council leaders are for the taking. But this vote goes well beyond local issues, as the ruling coalition that has helped keep the peace has unravelled. Former allies Henri Bédié of the PDCI party and the nation's president Alassane Ouattara and his RHDP party are using the vote to test each other's strength.
This really is a dress rehearsal for all sides taking part. The PDCI is going to test its mettle and whether it can take on the RHDP.
The current mayor of Abidjan's Cocody district represents the changes. Elected as a member of Bédié's party, he's standing this time for President Ouattara's.
Over the past 15 years, I have funded the PDCI in Cocody. Me. This has been met with ingratitude, but they're going to bite the dust.
The current mayor is up against a large number of independents and the PDCI, whose candidate is confident in taking on the president's party, the only one with candidates standing in every location.
The RHDP party is a machine. But I'm with the PDCI, one of the oldest parties in Africa.
Power broker Guillaume Soro casts a shadow over the proceedings. Now the leader of the National Assembly, he led the rebellion that helped trigger the Civil War. His supporters, aware of his presidential ambitions, are standing against President Ouattara's candidates.
The percentage scores his supporters achieve will give him an indication as to what is possible, how he's being perceived, and what sort of result he can get in the 2020 election.
And then there's the FPI, the party of former President Laurent Gbagbo, who's currently on trial at The Hague, but whose wife, Simone Gbagbo, was recently pardoned by President Ouattara. While the hardliners of his party will be boycotting this election, the rest will be standing, meaning that all possible contenders will be using these local elections to gauge their presidential prospects for 2020.
And finally to Tanzania, where technology is helping protect endangered species. In the Grumeti Game Reserve, elephants are being equipped with state-of-the-art tracking collars. The aim is also to protect rangers and trap poachers. France 24's Nicolas Germain has this report.
This elephant in the Grumeti Game Reserve in Tanzania has a special tracking collar. The system is called Earth Ranger. In this operations room, conservationists can keep a close eye on the animals.
What we do with DAS is we monitor all our assets, every collared animal, and we also input data, which in turn helps us make decisions and plan operations on when we extract the data and analyze it.
The technology aggregates remote sensor readings of animal movements, trackers on radios and vehicles, and camera trap photos.
Our job used to be very difficult, because if there was a threat, it would take a very long time for us to go out and respond. But now communication takes just seconds, and in a short while, we get our work done. In my opinion, things have become much easier and more professional.
The system was developed by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen and engineers from his company Vulcan. They said they wanted to help fight the surge in ivory poaching in Africa. The number of elephants on the continent fell by 20% between 2006 and 2015.
You're up to date. Coming up, more international headlines. Stay tuned. You're watching France 24.